better on the next test. So our last big unit is on conics. So we're starting it today. It's like 4 days of notes, then a review, then a test. So it's not a super long unit. It should be okay. But we're going to start with circle. Okay. Huh? Yes, circles. Okay, so look at the top. A circle is a set of points that are all equal distance from a center. Okay, every single point on the circle is the same distance from the center. Okay, so the way that you're going to find the center is the number with x. This is your standard equation right here. The way that you're going to find your center is it's going to be this number and then this number, but the opposite. Now, why do you imagine that we're going to do the opposite? What is it inside? What are they both inside? Parentheses. And whenever it's inside parentheses, you already know that it's going to be the opposite. So HK is the center. And then this number over here, R, is going to be the radius. Now, in the equation, do you notice that your R is squared? So if I want to find what the R is, I'm going to have to remember to undo the squared by taking the square root. Okay, but overall, this should be pretty easy. So take a look at your first question right here. Okay, I have a -2 in parentheses with x. That means my real x is +2. See how I took the opposite? Then my 3 was a +3 for y, then I'm going to do a -3. And then graph that on your picture. So I'm going to go to 2, -3, put my first dot. That's the center. And then your circle is going to go around that. But we need to know how big it is. So this number right here is your R squared. Now, if that's R squared, then what do I need to do to find R? Take the square root. And what's the square root of 9? 3. Okay. So if R squared is 9, then I got to square root the 9 to the 3. Okay, then from here, watch me do it first, then you do it. You're going to count out a circle with a radius of 3 starting from here. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, put a dot, up, 1, 2, 3, put a dot, over, 1, 2, 3, put a dot, down, 1, 2, 3, put a dot. And then you're just going to do your best to draw a circle. It doesn't have to look perfect. Whoop. That was pretty bad, but you get the idea. Okay, so the two pieces that you need are the center and then the radius. All good on that? Okay, take a look at number 2. This time, your x is alone. If your x is alone, what do you guess the center x value? 1. I'd have to have an x -1 for it to be 1. 0. Okay, so if your x is alone, that means it's a 0. Then my y has a -5. What's my real y then? 5. Now, let me also remind you, do you remember when we were graphing parent functions? Like if it was a -5, we would say like, oh, I'm not going to go to the side and then I'm going to go up 5. That's the same as this. Okay, so then go to 0, 5. That's your center. And then whatever numbers on the other side of the equals, that's your R squared. So if R squared is 4, then what's R? Take the square root and my R is 2. And then remember, how do you get your radius? You're just going to go 2 to the side, 2 up, 2 to down, blah, 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 all the way around. So I'll count 2 this way, 2 this way, 2 this way, 2 this way. And then just draw your circle. Make sense? All right. Next 2, this time you're going to know the center and the radius. You're going to write the equation yourself. So take a look at number 3, graph that circle for me. It says my center is going to be at -2, 1. my radius is going to be 5. So put your dot here at -2, 1. That would be here. And then if my radius is 5, then I'm going to go 5, 5, 5, 5, and just go all the way around the circle 5 units out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. 1, 2. Okay. And then once you draw your points, and we're just trying on the circle, doesn't have to. Now, if you know the center and the radius, you should go back and be able to write the equation. So what was my x here? Then what am I going to put with x if I have to do the opposite? Okay, so put x plus 2 squared plus. Okay, then what was my real y value? Then what am I going to put in here? Y minus 1. Both of them are squared. And then I set it equal to r squared. Remember, that's your equation. Yep, so if my radius is a 5, then I would have to square that back to make it a 25. Make sense? All right, take a look at number 4. This time it says graph a circle with center -1, 3. So -1, 3 is here. And then through -1, 9. So I'd say, okay, well, -1, 9 is up here. Then how can I use, this is the center. How can I use that information to, just count and see how far it is and then copy it all the way around. So I want to measure how far this is, and then that's going to be my radius. So let's count it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So then I can see, oh, my radius is 6. And then from there, remember, repeat it all the way around. So I'm going to go 6 this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Once you get your dots, you should be able to draw your circle. And then you should also be able to write the equation. Remember, your x and your y are both in parentheses, so they're both going to be opposite. So what was my real x for my center? -1, then I'm going to put a +1. What was my real y? 3, then I'm going to put a -3. Both of those are squared always because it's a circle. And then my radius, we counted it to be 6. Then what do I put here? 36. Easy enough? All right, turn the page. Okay, a little bit of geometry words coming up on the next page, but overall, it's the same thing. Okay, so look at number 5. It says my center is -3, 5. So -3, 5 is here, that's the center. And then it says it's tangent to the x-axis. Do we remember what tangent means? What does it mean? Do you remember in geometry, you'd have a circle and then you'd have a tangent line that would like touch it? Do you remember that? So if I want to be tangent to this, that means my circle has to touch basically right here. And then there's going to be my circle. Okay, so remember that tangent basically just means touching. Now, technically, if you remember from pre-cal, it touches at a right angle. Okay, but that really doesn't matter as far as. Okay, so technically tangent is touching at a perpendicular angle. So it doesn't matter about that. We just know that we need to touch right here. Well, then what are we going to do just like last time? Yeah, just count out your radius. So how far is it from 5 down to 0? Then my radius is 5. And I'm not even going to draw the rest of it. Well, no, I guess we can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and now your circle is tangent to the x-axis down here because it's just barely touching it. Another thing is it's only touching at one point. So like it couldn't be going through the circle. That doesn't count as tangent. Okay, then from there, what would the equation be for the circle? Do we know? Y minus 5 squared equals 25. Yep. Easy enough. All right, take a look at number 6. Okay, this time it gives me the diameter endpoint. The diameter endpoint. So let's see what happens on this one. Okay, graph 3, 6. 3, 6 is here. And then graph negative 5, 2 here. And I know that my circle is going to be something like this. Now, I don't know exactly what it looks like, but I know it's going to look kind of like that. So if these are the endpoints of the diameter, then how can I find the center? So the diameter is all the way across. Where should the center be? It should be in the middle, right? So let's count out my X and my Y. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, then what would half of over 8 and up 4 be? Because I got to cut them in half. 4 and then 2. Very good. So I counted over 8 and then up 4. That's the diameter. Then my radius is going to be half of both of those numbers. So I would count over 1, 2, 3, 4, up 2, and then I can see that's going to be my center. Okay, what is that ordered pair if I were to write it out? Okay, my center is negative 1, 4. Then start off the equation for me. What's it going to say? X plus 1 squared. Yes, plus 2y minus 1 squared equals, and then the R we haven't found yet, but we can find it. There are 2 ways for you to do it. Okay, the first one will be to find how long the diameter is and then cut it in half. You could do that. Or you can just already look at what shape did we make when we drew this? Triangle. Okay, a triangle with a right triangle. Then how can we find how long this is if we know these 2 sides? You know it. What do you know? A squared. Yeah. So look, it's just a little triangle right here. So to find the radius, that's this side right here. Then I'm just going to do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I'm going to redraw this right here. Okay, this is my radius that I want to find. Well, I went up 2 and I had gone over 4. So then I'll just do 2 squared plus 4 squared equals 4 squared. What's 2 squared? What's 4 squared? Okay, that's 20. Now, question. Do I need to square root the R to put it in the equation? Okay, if I square root it, I'll get the square root of 20. But then what am I going to put in the equation? Am I going to put R? What am I going to put? So this is the number that's going to go here. Does that make sense? Because I'd square root it to find the radius, but then I have to re-square it again to bring it back to being the R squared that I need for the equation. So remember, this right here is R squared. So once I get it to this step, I don't really have to finish the Pythagorean theorem because I already know the number. Okay. All right, one more like that, one more little bit of geometry here. We know our center is negative 3, 5. So negative 3, 5 is here. What's the first part of our equation then? Automatically we know it. Okay, x plus 3 squared and y minus 5 squared. Okay, and then we need to know the radius. Look what they give you instead this time. They tell you the circumference is 8 pi. Do we know what circumference is from geometry? How far it is around the circle? Does anybody remember the formula? Huh? It is 2 pi r. Very good. So circumference is 2 pi r. And then they're telling you that the circumference is 8 pi. So then all that I need to do is take my 8 pi, plug it in right here, and then solve for my r. So if 2 pi r is equal to 8 pi, how am I going to solve that? Divide the 2 pi. And then what's going to happen to the r? Then it's going to be alone, and I'll know my answer. Does that make sense? So circumference is 2 pi r, set it equal to 8 pi, and then divide by the 2 pi. What's my radius? 4. Now, will there still be a pi? No, because if there's one on top and one on bottom, those are going to cross out. So then from there, you'd have r equals 8 divided by 2, which is 4. Then do I put a 4 here? What do I put up there? 16. So I am going to put 4 up there, but I'm going to put it up there squared. So just don't forget that. Okay, overall makes sense? Okay. Is it easy enough that we can keep going and just finish the notes? Okay. All right, so turn to the next page. So for your homework, you need to be able to graph it. You need to be able to look at a graph and then write the equation, just like we did in the notes. The other thing is to change your equation from standard form back into graphing form. So if you remember, standard form is where all the crap is mixed together in the equation and it's not ready to graph yet. So our goal is to turn this into graphing form, which is this. Okay, because I can't graph it in this form, but if I get it into this form, then I can. So the way that we do that is complete the square. Okay, which probably most of y'all forgot. So let's review how to do it. The steps are a little bit weird, but it's not hard. Okay, first thing you're gonna do is get all your x's in a row and then get your y's in a row. So that means x squared. What's the next x term? So x squared and 8x. Then I want you to leave a blank. Okay, now we're going to collect the y term. So I have a y squared. What's my next y term? Plus or minus 6y? Minus 6y. Then leave a blank. And then your number that does not have an x or a y, we're going to push across to the other side. Now, it was originally a minus 24. What will its sign be when I add it across to the other side? Positive 24. So far, so good? Okay, this is how you complete the square in case you forgot. You're going to take half of the middle term and you're going to make a perfect square. So what is half of 8? 4. Then I'm going to do x plus 4 squared. Now, when that happens, you have to fill in the blank with what the last term would be. So for example, what is 4 squared? Then I have to add a 16 here. And if I add a 16 on this side, where do you guess I have to also add a 16? Onto the 24 side. Now we're going to do the exact same thing to y. I'm going to cut the middle term in half. So it used to be a negative 6. Then how many can I take? 3, but it has to be a minus 3. You have to match the sign. And then what's negative 3 squared for me to fill in the blank here? Think about positive or negative. If it's negative 3 times negative 3 again. Still positive. So you should never be subtracting in those fill in the blank spots. Okay, and then if I add a 9 on this side, where else do I have to add a 9? Over to this side. Very good. Yeah, and then all that you have to do is in your calculator, add these guys up, and then you'll know what this number is. Okay, and I forgot to tell you all to get a calculator, so I'll just do it for you. All right, so 24 plus 16 plus 9 gives me 40. And now we're ready to graph. Now I'm not going to make you graph, but let's write the center at the beginning. What would my center be?
-4, +3.
-4, +3. And then what would my radius have been? 7. The square root of 49 is 57. Does that make sense? All right, let's do another one. So you get the general idea. You should have learned complete the square in Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, but I know that was kind of when COVID hit, so maybe it got skipped. So first thing you do is reorganize your terms. So go down to number 9. All your x stuff is going to go in a row. So I have an x squared minus 2x. And then I'm going to save a spot for that complete the square term. Then I'm going to take my y squared and my plus 6y. And then I'm going to save a spot for my complete the square term. And then the number that doesn't go with the x's or the y's, we just push that to the other side. It started off as a negative. What will it be when I move it across? +6. Very good. Okay, from there, remember, complete the square, you can only take half. So in the middle here, it's a -2. What's half of that? Half of 2 would be 1, -1. And then what's 1 squared for me to fill in the blank? 1 times 1 is 1 again, always plus. What did I forget? If I add the 1 here, gotta add it over here to the 6. Very good. Okay, now we're doing our y's. What was my middle y? I can only take half to complete the square. How much am I taking? Y plus 3. And then what's 3 squared for me to fill in the blank? 9. And then if I put a +9 here, I have to put a +9 over there. Then add that up. 1 + 9 is 10. Add 6 more. What's my r squared? 16. And then from there, you can identify your point for your center and you can identify your radius. What will my center be? 1, -3 is correct. And then what would my r be? The square root of 16 is 4. Make sense? All right, turn page. 2 more left, almost done. Notice on number 10, what's something that's different on number 10 that we didn't see on 8 or 9? The 18's already moved across, and then what did you say? Okay, very good. You cannot complete the square if your x squared isn't alone. So if I've got a 2 on it, what could I do to fix that? You can't do it with a 2 there. Divide everything by what? And if I divide by 2 here, what do you guess I'm going to have to do? Divide by 2 on the 18. Remember, you got to do, whenever I add something on the left, I have to add it on the right. Well, then if I'm going to divide by 2 on the left, I have to divide by 2 on the right. Every single term is going to get divided by 2. So my 2x squared is now a 1x squared. Where is my other x term so that I can just go ahead and sort them out as I'm writing them? Okay, I had a 12x, cut that in half. What is it now? And then leave a blank. Next term, I had a y squared. It was a 2y squared, divided the 2 off. So now it's just a y squared. And then I had a -16y divided by 2. What is it now? 8y. Blank equals, what's on the other side now? -18 divided by 2 is now a -9. Very good. And then it's fine for that number to be negative right now, because remember, we're going to be adding to that side. Okay. From there, what is my x complete the square parentheses going to say? Minus or plus? If your 6 was positive, when you cut it in half, it should still be positive. And then what's 3 squared for me to put in the blank? So +9 here and +9 there. Okay, now I'm ready to do my y's. I had a -8 for my y's. What's my parentheses going to be? -4. And then what's 4 squared for me to fill in the blank? Should I do plus or minus 16? Always plus, because remember, even if it was negative here, when I times -4 times -4, the negative crosses out. And then plus 16. Okay, then on the other side, what's going to happen with the negative and the positive 9? So then really we just have 16. And then from there, you can find all the pieces that you need. So what would my center be? -3, 4. Oh, what did I do wrong? Yeah, should have been positive, because remember, you're taking the opposite off of. Okay, and then what would my radius have been? Square root of 16 is 4. All right, one more left. Take a look at the last one here. What do we have to do with our x squared and our y squared? Okay, divide by 16. So 16 divided by 16 is, that doesn't. 27. Well, it has to be a 1 at the front. Okay, we're gonna still do it, but if it's gonna have some fractions, but it's fine. Okay, so 16 divided by 16 crosses out, so I have an x squared. What is 8x if I divide it by 16? What's 8 divided by 16? 0.5. And then save the spot. It's okay that it's a decimal. Okay, then for my next one, I had a 16y squared. Now it's just a y squared because I divided by 16. And then what about my minus 16y if I divided it by 16? -1y. Save a spot. And then on the other side, 27/6, we're just going to leave it as a fraction because we can use a calculator for it. It's fine. So I'm going to just leave it as 27/16. Okay. From here, I can only take half of 0.5. Okay, let's use a calculator. Do we know half of 0.5? It can't be 0. 0.25. It'd be 0.25, because think about it, it's like half of 50 cents, right? Divided by 2, you get 0.25. So write that down. You're going to have x plus 0.25. And then what number am I going to fill in the blank? What do I have to do in the calculator? 0.25 squared. Okay, or you could do 0.25 times 0.25. Again, that's the same thing. Okay, so I got 0.0625. So add that in right here. 0.0625. And then I'm going to add it over here. 0.0625. All right, now let's look at our y's. We had a -1 in the middle. What's half of that? Plus or minus 0.5? Minus 0.5. And then what am I going to fill in the blank with? What do I have to type in here? What did I do wrong? Can't be negative. So if you're going to type the negative, you need to do it correctly and put it in parentheses, and then you'll see that it crosses out. Okay. Oh, and actually, I should have just done 0.5, not 0.25. Okay, so -0.5 squared is 0.25. So add that here and add that here. Okay, and then your last little bit of this would be just to add this crap up. So in my calculator, I'm going to do 27/16 plus 0.0625 plus 0.25, and I get, okay. What's my center going to be? Change the sign, so now it's a negative. And then what about my minus 0.5? Now it's a positive. And then my radius is whatever the square root of 2 is. It's not going to be perfect like all the other ones, but that's okay. Okay, you could even type it in your calculator and see exactly how long that is. The square root of 2 is 1.4. Okay, so this one, because the numbers ended up being fractions, we ended up with kind of a weird radius at that time. Okay, overall, do you have any questions? Okay. Do we want to do a question or two off the homework together, or you got it? Do one together? All right, go ahead and pull up your homework for me, please. Okay, I just opened it, so you should be able to see it now. And then let's just do the first one here. When you're ready. Okay, let's do this first one right here. Give it a sec. Can y'all see it? Can anybody see it? Okay. Okay, take your time. And we should all have the exact same first question. Okay, so look at what you have. You have a picture, and then it tells you to write the equation. So even if yours isn't loaded yet, okay, you can still do it looking at mine. What do I need to know to write the equation of this circle? I need the center, and then I need the, and that's it, center and radius. So what's my center? How far is it across? 1, 2, 3, 4. Then what would half of that be? 2 would be right here. So then what's my center? 1, 5. And then what's my radius? 2. And then in the box, you're just going to type the equation. So if my center is 1, 5, I do x minus 1 and y minus 5. Do not forget the squareds. If you don't know how to put the exponent, you're going to hit Shift 6 and it'll give you a little number where you can type in the 2. Okay, and then what do I want that equal to? My radius was a 2, then what do I put on the other side? Okay, 4, very good. If you don't like doing the Shift 6 for the squared, you can find it in the keyboard too. Now, if I were you and I wanted to be kind of lazy and not have to type that over and over again, just highlight it and copy it. And then whenever you do the next one, you can just paste it and then change the numbers that you need to change. Okay. All right, then we'll do one more of, see if y'all have the same last question with me. Oh, I think we all have different ones. Does everyone have the same on this? Okay, hold on. I'm gonna make us all have the same one, but you'll have to refresh, okay? Okay, so hit refresh and then see if your last one is the same as mine now. So now it should be this. Huh? And then I'll take one off of the ones where everybody's is different. You see it? Yep. Okay, so ready? I'm gonna just, okay. So hit refresh and now all of our last questions should be the same. Good. Okay, what do we do first? You want to put it in graphing form instead of standard form. Think back to the examples we just did. Okay. X squared plus 6x, then blink. Okay. Then for my y's, what do I have? Plus 16y blink equals what on the other side? It was a -8, so when I move it over, now it's gonna be a +8. Okay, then what do I do from there? Okay, I can only take half, so if it's a 6, what's half of that? X plus 3 squared. And then what is 3 squared for me to put in the blank? +9 here and +9 here. Okay, now let's do our y's. We had 16 in the middle. What's half of that? Y. And then what's 8 squared for me to fill in the blank? 64, and then 64 here. And then how do I know my R? I have to add up these 3 numbers right here. So let's do that real quick. Calculator, we want 8 plus 9 plus 64. Okay, 81. Then what's the square root of that gonna be? 9. I'm gonna put in 81 here. Let me make that go away. Okay, and then now I'm ready to answer these questions here. What will my center be? -3, 8? -8, good. And then what's my radius? 9, you get it? Okay, anybody need scratch paper? Yeah. All right, and then y'all can go ahead and get started. You know enough to do all the homework. You're welcome. Yeah, all right. I do. There you go. For the old one, yeah, right? And who was it? Who had to go get their yard sign? Was it Jillian? Do you want to go get your yard sign from lunch? Or you want to try this?
Be lunchtime. Actually, yeah, then I don't have that much time, so I'll just let you go for see lunch.
Okay. I don't know how to start. Which one? Then count 7 from either of the endpoints. Just count 7 to the middle, and you'll end up knowing what the center is. But if you know how far it is across, then your radius will be half